Well, I think in my view, one of the major problems is that many conformity assessment body personnel come away from training courses believing that their prime goal is to create documentation. I've seen this happen many times before, where the project leaders within a facility spend a great deal of time raising documentation to, in their belief, satisfy the requirements of the standard. Now, whether that's a laboratory, a general testing lab, or a medical testing lab, or an inspection body, this seems to be their primary goal. And unfortunately, this is what causes their major stumbling block. We have a situation where we've trained consultants within a country that have had great success in helping laboratories, both general test labs and medical laboratories, to become accredited within very short periods of time. And what we do is we focus on the technical issues first. And this is where I believe the problem lies in conformity assessment bodies approaching this on their own. They believe they should spend 80% of the time on developing quality manuals, where in fact they should be actually spending between 60 to 80% of the time getting the technical issues implemented. And I'm talking about issues like getting their equipment calibrated first. Without a calibrated equipment and traceability to national and international standards, you cannot go further and validate or verify your method. So that's the first thing you have to do. You need to calibrate your equipment. Secondly, then you need to start establishing quality systems, quality control systems within the labs. You then need to look at the competency of the personnel. You need objective evidence that the people are competent. And you need criteria by which you judge those to be competent. And so on and so forth. You bring in interim checks, daily interim checks. And it's by doing these core technical issues, by getting these core technical issues implemented within the laboratory, you're having a very, very strong base for implementing a whole management system around that. Now, the key to that, obviously, is to have commitment from management, and real commitment from management. And we found that in doing this, having this approach where we look at the technical issues first, the documentation follows in a very short time. It follows either parallel or slightly behind. And if we get the management commitment right, we get the technical systems implemented, then the whole process moves along very, very quickly. And we've had that type of success within short periods of time, as I said, probably about 6 months, 6 to 9 months. But it all depends on management commitment. Well, it's critical to have the management commitment to provide resources. And I'm talking about personnel resources and financial resources. You need a driver within the organization. Without a driver, in other words, a project leader, without a project leader that's been delegated to implement this project by top management, it'll not happen. That's the bottom line. You cannot implement a project by consensus. You need a driver who's been delegated with the responsibility and the accountability to make sure it happens. Very often, facilities, laboratories or inspection bodies or certification bodies believe that management commitment is proven by a statement. The statement has nothing to do with management commitment. Proof of management commitment is the provision of resources. And that's not only in the implementation of a system, but it's also in the sustainability of the system. So management review, it's critical that you have top management there. They need to make the decisions based on the inputs in terms of the corrective actions, the non-conformances, the audits, internal and external, etc. They need to make the decisions on how to correct that and have continuous improvement. And continuous improvement doesn't only go along with continuous improvement of quality, it's continuous improvement of the service of a business. So the top management need to be there to be able to say, do we need to expand our business in one direction, in another direction, or do we need to increase the scope of accreditation so that we can follow on and satisfy our clients? That's what it's about. That's what management commitment is about. Validation of methods, validation of test methods or calibration methods is critical to understand what the method can do. You need to know what the performance criteria of the method is in order to be able to understand whether it suits your client's needs. There's no point in using a method that cannot reach the detection levels required by a regulator. So you need to understand its performance capability in order to be able to provide a result, a calibration result or a test result that meets the client's requirements. Now, very often laboratories, test labs and medical laboratories steer away from validation and verification. And they do that on the basis of what could be seen as vague indications of the requirement within 17025 and 15189. ISO 15189 has become very, very clear on that subject now, and laboratories need to verify their methods based on the manufacturers, suppliers of equipment's capability. In terms of general test labs, validation is critical. And if you have a standard test method, it needs to be verified, assuming that you have validation data. In other words, assuming that you know its performance capability. And very many standard test methods do not provide that data. So therefore, how can you verify that your lab can actually meet that performance capability if the validation data is not there? And the national accreditation body within Australia have indicated that it very, very clearly that if a standard method does not contain validation data, it needs to be revalidated. And that's a significant step. And I think one of the critical problems with addressing the requirements of validation and verification within test labs is that very often people are afraid of statistics. They steer clear of it because they don't understand what has to be done. And it's an area that has to be addressed in order to be able to supply a test result of a known measurement uncertainty. And it's a requirement of laboratories to produce a test result with a stated measurement uncertainty if the client requires it, or if you are producing a measurement against a specification, for instance, for a regulator. So it's critical to have a full knowledge of what the method can do, in other words, its performance capability, and also what its measurement uncertainty is of a test result at specific levels. And I see that as one of the areas that is a challenge for laboratories and also for accreditation bodies that has to be addressed.